Welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning, 25 minutes past the hour 9 a.m. East African time, that we do come to you live from the capital of Uganda, Kampala. It's a pleasure to be back. Thank you to those that managed to catch us last night. Not many of you, but we still appreciate the few of you that were part of that broadcast. Thank you so much for having been part of it. You made it worthwhile. As we discussed the Uganda trends, as we discussed everything. Hi, LFC, good to be back. This morning, this beautiful morning, we'll be discussing the sacking of Antonio Conte. Sorry, the sacking of Nuno Espirito Santo at Nottingham Forest. I did not see that come. I did not see that come. So, LFC, what are your thoughts on the sacking of Nuno Espirito Santo as Nottingham Forest manager? What are your feelings about this? What's your submission about this? Because for me, it's a huge bomb early into the season for a manager that has elevated Nottingham Forest to an almost new status to try and emulate what their history was, because we know this is a side that has ever won the UEFA Champions League. I think you have to go back some many years. You know, it's because the chairman was making transfers behind his back. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, somebody is got to be boss of the other. We know for a fact that there were internal disagreements between the manager in Nuno Espirito Santo and Nottingham Forest's head of global football in Edu Gaspar Daoud, the former sporting director at Arsenal. We know that to be a fact, or a statement of facts. And then we know that the manager himself did acknowledge that his relationship with the owner in Evangelis Marinakis. I'll be back in 10 minutes, okay? So we know that the manager in Nuno Espirito Santo was having, he did acknowledge that his relationship with the owner, Evangelis Marinakis, was declining. And that decline in relationship was apparently linked to the incoming of Edu Gaspar Daoud, who was then now meant to be the link between the two, between the owners and the manager, and everyday day-to-day work at the club in that regard. Well, and I did speak about this some time back when news had just broken that their relationship was not good. I think that story came through The Athletic, who made the allegations that Nuno Espirito Santo and Edu Gaspar Daoud were not seeing eye to eye. And I remember saying this, and I do not think my position has changed. However, I'll just fight or give you a few explanations for that matter. One, I did say this, and I do maintain the same position. If I'm the owner of the club and I have a good manager who's done a good job, we did finish 7th last season, and out of a boardroom, decision, we managed to advance to the UEFA Europa League, having qualified for the UEFA Conference League. I would stick with my manager. I would stick with my manager ahead of the new head of global football. Now I understand the two Evangelis Marinakis and Edu Gaspar Daoud are buddies beyond just the employee, boss kind of relationship, that they are buddies. But for me, I would stick with the manager, because at the end of the day, what happens on the pitch matters a lot. Those results matter a lot. We need those results. And if we have a manager that is posting the good results, that we see, with whom we see we are headed in the right direction. Because I mean, up until I think until the last 8 games or thereabouts, Nottingham Forest were vying for a top 4 finish. Well, yes, did they fall short of that? Obviously, they did eventually, but I think they did tremendously well. They did tremendously well in their own regard. But this morning, we did, that statement was put out at midnight in the UK last night. That means it was about 2 a.m. in Uganda. So that's why we could not react to the story very quickly. But yeah, they have sacked Nuno Espirito Santo. He's been at the club since December 2023 when he took over. He was brought in after the sacking of Steve Cooper. At the time, we also know that Steve Cooper last season had a stint with Leicester City before he was sacked, and then they brought in Ruud van Nistelrooy, who has himself since been sacked. Then, so that kind of relationship with the club, he managed to save them from relegation. That's for going into finishing that season of 2023-2024, and then we entered last season, which was his first full campaign, and we saw where they finished. I've already said Nuno Espirito Santo is a good manager. For some of you that do forget, I think it was around prior to the start of the 2023-2024 campaign, was it? No, not that campaign. Prior to this, I think that was around 2020. What? You remember he was appointed at Tottenham Hotspur, and it did not work out. When he had left Wolves, it did not work out. And the reason as to why it did not work out is partly because they were a little bit impatient with him. Because I've already acknowledged that managers sometimes are bound for difficult starts. They are bound for difficult starts. But he had a stint with Tottenham Hotspur in 2021. Yes, after the sacking of Jose Mourinho in November, was it around November? No, after November, because it was before the finals of the Carabao Cup in 2021, early into 2021, he was sacked, and then Ray Mason did complete the season. And then in the summer of 2021, Nuno Espirito Santo is appointed new Tottenham manager, having left Wolves that same summer. So he had the stint, which was a very short stint, because I think he was fired in around November that year. And when he gets fired, when he gets fired in November that year, he was dismissed, of course. When he gets dismissed, that's when they bring in Antonio Conte to take them through until the end of the season, for which they managed to finish in a good position. That was for the 2021-2022 Premier League season. I think they finished fourth on the Premier League table, qualifying for the UEFA Champions League. And then the subsequent season, Antonio Conte, being the new manager, did not complete the season because he himself was sacked towards the tail end of the season, before having his assistant being left as an interim. And the interim himself was eventually sacked, and then Ray Mason completed the season. So he talks about that tumultuous time about Tottenham Hotspurs, but Tottenham Hotspurs are not the topic of this debate. It is the man who has been sacked, in Nuno Espirito Santo. Of course, when he left Tottenham Hotspurs, he had the stint or a role with Al Ittihad, or it had in the Saudi Pro League. That was for the 2022. Between 2022 and 2023, before he left to join Wolverhampton Wanderers, where he is being sacked by now. Now, according to a statement put out by the club, they did say, they say, yes, apologies, I'm trying to find the statement. I always had this is what the manager said about his soiled relationship with the boss. And he had his frustrations over the club's lack of recruitment. Before then, it came in sort of big numbers towards the tail end of the transfer window. When they brought in James McAtee, they brought in Omar Hudson, they brought in Douglas Luiz, they brought in Carl Moendo, some of those names are really. Then they managed to keep a hold of Morgan Gibbs-White, who was almost destined to move to Tottenham Hotspurs. He said, I always had a very good relationship with the owner. Last season, we were very close and spoke on a daily basis. This season, it is not so well. Nuno acknowledged, our relationship has changed and we are not as close. Everybody at the club should be together, but this is not the reality. That was him speaking about his relationship with Evangelist Marinakis in regards to transfers and how things were going at the time. In total, so Forest made 13 signings, for spending about 196 million pounds, in just the recently concluded transfer window. And again, those transfers are partly why the disagreements further deepened, between Edu Gaspar Dawood and Nuno Espirito Santo, because Nuno apparently in part was arguing they were going to end up with a bloated squad, and managing it would become a bit difficult because those players want playing time, and once they are not playing, they're going to be unhappy. The last being Alexander Zinchenko coming in from Arsenal on a season-long loan. Then Dylan Bakwa from Strasbourg, bought quite expensively for about 34.7 million pounds. And then Danny Ndoye from Bologna was bought in. Igor Jesus, Cherif Yaya from Rio Ave, Gia Cunha, Angus Gunn. Then those are some of the other signings. And Nicolo Savona is also one of those coming in from Juventus, while Jean came in from Botafogo. They brought in about 3 players, or about 4 players from Botafogo, So really, and then of course we know there were not so many significant departures besides Danilo, who joined Botafogo, then Matt Turner, the goalkeeper, joined Lyon, and then Anthony Elanga, who left to join Newcastle. The others were minors, really, if we are being honest. So apparently, he did not agree to that. He had his reservations in that regard. In the face of those transfers and things like that. Like I said, that was largely being driven by the new head of global football at the club. That's Edu Gaspar Dawood. When Evasisi came in, having left his role at Arsenal as sporting director. Remember, Evangelos Marinakis has about 3 clubs: Olympiacos, Nottingham Forest, Braga in Portugal. So he's a man that does love football and does invest quite heavily in football. I'm trying to find the actual statement released by the club, or the comments by the club in regards to, yes, this is what in part Nottingham Forest had to say about they said, Nottingham Forest thanked Nuno for his contribution during a very successful era at the City Ground, and added that would always be a special place in their journey. So, I mean, that's basically that's as basic as a statement as it comes. We know all clubs literally make that. You remember Tottenham Hotspurs, where they're sacking Ange Postecoglou after sacking him, despite having won them the UEFA Europa League title. So really, I mean, there's been a bit of anxiety over his future at the club. In the last 2 weeks or so, ever since he commented publicly about his relationship with the owner. Then, like I said previously, he had these rumblings about, he had his rumblings about the transfer business, that the club were conducting, or how slow it had been, or in that sort of sense. But the sacking does come at a time when they are bound to face off with Arsenal on the weekend in that early kickoff on Saturday, as that's the 14th at 2:30 p.m. East African time. So I mean, that's a significant change ahead of a very difficult game. I mean, it's difficult for Nottingham Forest, as it is difficult for the Arsenal, because early kickoffs, as we will get to know or find out sooner or later, are not the easiest of fixtures to go about, but it is what it is. It is what it is. So there's that as well. And then you look at, excuse me, you look at that and think to yourself, was this a right timing? And also, why have they waited this long? Why did they sack him as soon as players broke off for the international break? You know. Anyways, the club are trying to are starting a recruitment campaign, and they have already some options, some names in their shortlist that they are assessing. Again, we are waiting for a decision to be made, but whichever decision is made, we will expect this to be a bit of a, to be not an easy ask for any manager that walks in, because trying to replicate what Nottingham Forest did last season is going to be a whole mountain to climb, with the new responsibilities that they also have on the continent in the UEFA Europa League. Like I said, they finished 7th, in which they won 19 games, drew 8 games, lost 11, and finished with a tally of 65 points. So, 2 points further than that, they could have easily ended up. They could have easily ended up with the direct qualification to the UEFA Europa League, and 3 points. Okay, maybe for 3 points further than that, they would have straight earned themselves a slot in the UEFA Champions League. So that's how close it was for them. That's how good they were last season, managing that tally of 65 points across the campaign. When you look at the season before last, that was the 2023-2024 campaign. Like I said, they had to battle relegation. We're talking about a team that finished 17th on the Premier League table with 32 points. Of course, we had Luton Town, Burnley, and Sheffield United relegated. So you look at that and say, first of all, he saved them from that relegation, but look at that leap from 17th to 7th. That's a leap of 10 positions on the Premier League table. It's not an easy ask. It's not an easy job to get done, really. Of course, you had players like Moriro, players like Nikola Milenkovic, the defender, Matt Sells, the goalkeeper, Ola Aina, Morgan Gibbs-White, Anthony Elanga, Calum Hudson-Odoi, Chris Wood, some of the players that Elliot Anderson, some of the players that had a very, very interesting season last campaign out for Nottingham Forest. Apologies. So really, you look at it in that angle and think to yourself, why? Why now? Why now? You ought to ask the question, why now? We are talking about a manager that is managed to achieve all that in a short span of time. And who knows what more he could have achieved this season, because their start to the season hasn't been the most horrible, because when you look at the Premier League log or the Premier League table, you remember their first game, they beat up against Brentford by 3-1, and they are currently 10th on the Premier League table, having lost one game, won one and drawn the other. So that's just about it, really. So among the considerations for potential replacements for Nuno Espirito Santo is one, Ange Postecoglou, the Australian manager, who was sacked or relieved of his duties last season at the end of last season, after guiding Tottenham Hotspur to the triumph of the UEFA Europa League, like I said. So you look at that and think to yourself, maybe, bringing in Ange Postecoglou, given his reputation that he did conclude with Tottenham Hotspur, and never mind that he managed to win them a title, that's a given, or that's not to be written away. But you look at their style of play, and apparently, Evangelist Marinax wants his side to play more entertaining football, as opposed to the kind of low block with the counterattacks as the main components and things like that. Let's be honest. Not every team is cut out to playing entertaining football. Not every team is cut out for that. But yeah, so Ange Postecoglou's defending or setup of the team that caused problems in defending or out of possession is what cost him primarily his job at Tottenham Hotspurs, because at the end of the day they ended up finishing 17th on the Premier League globe, which was unacceptable to Daniel Levy and his partners. And never mind that Daniel Levy has since left, and we're going to speak about Daniel Levy in a bit because Tottenham did come out to say they are not for sale. Well, we'll wait and see. Only time will tell. But he's one of the candidates, Ange Postecoglou. Then the other name that has been floated around, of course, is Jose Mario Felix Mourinho, having been sacked at Fenerbahce, recently. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, could he be in the frame? I mean, that's more wishful than a reality at the moment. And not that his name is sounding strong among the potential replacements, but we are talking about managers that currently have no jobs, So who could be who are the bookies talking about when it comes to potential replacements for Nuno Espirito Santo, at the club, and for me, Jose Mourinho, whether you like it or not, he's a name that has to feature, especially when when you're going to play in Europe. I mean, he has the experience. Is he still as good as he used to be? Maybe not, actually, based on what we've seen in recent times, but it does. You look at it and you look at that and think to yourself, maybe, just maybe, I mean, he's a good manager, let's be honest. Fenerbahce finished what? Second last season in the Turkish Premier League. And you look at some of the players that they already have at Nottingham Forest. And defensively, they were solid. They have a good goalkeeper. I mean, that's a... they have some good goal scorers, Chris Wood, banging in the goals. I wouldn't say they do not have fancy players because you brought in Danny Ndoye, but I mean these are players. These are teams, or I mean, for me it would have to be Jose Mourinho, and maybe the other you could think of is Oliver Glasner. Oliver Glasner is a very, very good manager. You look at Nottingham Forest and their deep pockets. You look at Nottingham Forest and you look at their deep pockets and say Oliver Glasner with those kinds of resources would be a very, very good scoop for Nottingham Forest. Although I do not know if he would be open to joining Nottingham Forest. Apparently, he's holding out for a much bigger fish. Recently, he was approached by Bayer Leverkusen, whose managerial role is vacant after the sacking of Erik ten Hag. Again, I do not know if they made a progress on that, So let's just wait and see how things will be for Nottingham Forest in the coming 8 days. But yeah, they do have a weekend fixture to get to against Arsenal. Today is only Tuesday, so they have a bit of they have a little bit of time. So okay, Jose Mourinho's name does feature prominently, as well as Ange Postecoglou, according to multiple sources, but let's just wait and see, According to Alex Crook, he said Ange Postecoglou, one of the early front runners to replace Nuno Santo at Nottingham Forest, Marco Silva, also admired by the hierarchy, there and Jose Mourinho, another option, although I understand Edu and Marinakis want a more progressive playing style, which was one of the issues with Nottingham Forest. Now, if they want a more progressive style, then definitely you're not going to go for Jose Mourinho. Marco Silva at Fulham. Okay, understandable, but I think to myself, why not Andoni Iraola at AFC Bournemouth? Andoni Iraola, yes, Ange Postecoglou is progressive, but then defensively, he often lets his team down. Then you look at Marco Silva, very good manager. Those are all very, very good names. Those are all very, very good names, But let's wait and see how things will be in the coming days for Nottingham Forest. But yeah, it is the end of the road for Nuno Espirito Santo as far as Nottingham Forest is concerned. Nottingham Forest Football Club confirms that following recent circumstances, Nuno Espirito Santo has today been relieved of his duties as head coach. Club thanks Nuno for his contribution during a very successful year at the City Ground, in particular his role in the 2024-2025 season, which will forever be remembered fondly in the history of the club. As someone who played a pivotal role in our success last season, he will always hold a special place in our journey. That's what they put out on X. Anyway, it is what it is. I do not agree with the decision, but the decision lays with those who mind, at the club. So, but I mean, I'm pretty convinced that sooner or later, Nuno Espirito Santo will find himself in another. If he finds himself another job. But like I said, we will have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see when it comes to that. In regards to Bayer Leverkusen, according to Kika reports that Kasper Hulman is set to become the new Bayer Leverkusen head coach, replacing Ten Hag. Who is Kasper? We need to find out. Kasper. Apologies on the mispronunciation of the second name, but he's. I'm not hearing the name for the first time, if we are being honest. He's a Danish football manager who is actually been appointed at Bayer Leverkusen. This is according to Wikipedia. He was with Denmark between 2020 and 2024. He's managed a couple of small clubs, but he also did manage Mainz 04. Oops, LFC is back. So Bayer Leverkusen have themselves a new name for a manager. That's Kasper. He was appointed just yesterday. Yesterday, that's when the appointment was confirmed. Bayer Leverkusen have appointed Kasper Gilmad as the head coach following the sacking of Ten Hag last week after only 2 games. The 53-year-old Dane guided his country to the European Championship semi-finals in 2021, where they narrowly lost to England after extra time. It's an honor to be entrusted with such a team. I'm now very motivated to help shape the future of Bayer Leverkusen with both established and existing new players. Those were some of the words of Kasper following his appointment. There. Sorry, LFC say sorry for what? It's all right. So really, that's the outlook of things for Bayer Leverkusen. Then quickly, Tottenham Hotspurs are not for sale. Tottenham Hotspurs are not for sale. That's what the club are saying. I do not know what motivated them to be saying that the club is not for sale, but because rumors will be always there. And from what we are getting is that Daniel Levy was forced out of the door, was forced out of the door, and that is caused a bit of stir or caused a bit of speculation within the club, in recent times. So, according to BBC Sport, Amanda Stevali, you remember the name, formerly at Newcastle, is one of the names being talked about in this quote-unquote potential buy of Tottenham Hotspur. So, according to British business executive Amanda Stevali, has been linked with a bid to buy Tottenham Hotspur, although the club have publicly denied that they are up for sale. One of her most notable business moves has been helping lead the Saudi Public Investment Fund's takeover of Newcastle United in 2021. We remember that Stevali was also a 10%, initially it was 14%, I think, but a 10% shareholder at Newcastle following the takeover, and held a minority share in the club alongside husband, Madad Godosi, until their departure in July 2024. I remember we spoke about these two prominently when we were discussing the situation of Alexander Isak at the club. So, yeah, you do have that in the works in as far as Tottenham is concerned. But the other day, I think I saw the CEO of Benai Vectishim. I was doing an interview with Sky Sport, and he did reiterate that the club is not for sale. I do not know why they quickly run to the fences, and yet it's only been floated around as rumor that the club could be up for sale. But anyways, guys, that's my verdict on all those things. Let's wait for Tottenham, whether they're up for sale or not. Only time will tell. Bluco, that's the club that owns Chelsea and Strasbourg in France. They are trying to buy Santos, according to Malpo reports. They are trying to buy Santos in Brazil. We know for a fact that Santos have had their struggles in recent times, but let's wait and see. Nuno Espirito Santo being sacked. We discussed that. Potential replacements. And Postecoglou is a head runner in that. Marco Silva. My feeling would be that you ought to add Oliver Glasner and Don Iraola if you're looking for progressive managers, really, because they want to play more progressive football and things like that. Of course, that would exclude Jose Mourinho. Then, of course, Bayer Leverkusen have themselves a new manager in Kasper. So let's just wait and see. By tomorrow, of course, the World Cup qualifiers do continue even today. Yesterday we had some matches that were played, including the Uganda Cranes beating up against Somalia by 2-0. Those goals scored by Alan Okello from the penalty spot and Jude Semugabi from close range. Following that horrendous error from the goalkeeper of the Somalis national team. He fumbled that ball in the pathway of Jude Semugabi. Today, Kenya are up against Seychelles, Zimbabwe take on Rwanda at 4 p.m., while Tanzania take on Niger, still the same kickoff time. Namibia will be up against Sao Tome and Principe. Sierra Leone will be up against Ethiopia. Burkina Faso will be up against Egypt at 7 p.m., as well as Togo up against Sudan. South Africa will take on Nigeria in Bloemfontein. Then Cape Verde will take on Cameroon. DRC Congo are up against Senegal. That's a battle to watch, because that's the team that is leading the pile in DRC Congo, taking on Senegal that are coming second in that group. Mauritania at 10 p.m. will be up against South Sudan, while Gabon will take on Ivory Coast. Angola will be up against Mauritius, while Benin and Lesotho have a date with each other, and then Gambia and Burundi will be the other fixture, and then for the FIFA World Cup qualifiers on the side of the African continent, that will be sealed, done, and dusted today. Europe, they do also equally have their engagements. Yesterday night, there was a thrilling encounter between Israel and Italy that ended with Italy winning by 5-4. 2 own goals by Bastoni and Manuel Locatelli there, while Peretis did score a brace for Israel. On the side of Italy, Moises Kean scored a brace. Sandro Tonali was on target. Respatadori as well as Politano were the goal scorers for the Italian national team as Gennaro Gattuso cruised to victory. But that kind of defending is not one we know Italy for. France are going to be up against Iceland at 9:45 p.m. Azerbaijan will take on Ukraine at 7 p.m. Armenia will be up against Ireland, while Hungary do have a date with Portugal. Bosnia and Herzegovina will take on Austria, while Cyprus and Romania do have a date with each other. Norway and Moldova do have an engagement, while Albania and Latvia also do play each other. Serbia and England are also coming at 9:45 p.m. I think that's a game I'll try to watch to see how that English team does fare. Then also, yeah, basically that's what to expect from the World Cup qualifiers on the European side there. So be looking forward to that action. Choose what you can follow, and the rest we will see. We'll be bringing you the results, and then of course, by the time I iterate into tomorrow, we'll summarize of the results, and then we'll be looking towards the weekend and discussing what's to come for the weekend for match day 4 of the Premier League as well as the Spanish La Liga. I think the Italian Serie A will be entering match day 3 and things like that. So yeah, I'm trying to see if CONCACAF have is it CONCACAF have their own schedule. But anyways, it's been 36 minutes of doing this with you. Thank you so much, LFC, and every single one of you that manages to tune into this podcast. I do not take your love and support for granted. For those that do watch our broadcasts long after they've ended, we do not take your time for granted. Thank you so much for sparing your time to be with us. Bye-bye for now, and stay blessed, and I'll see you guys next time. Stay blessed.